Welcome to OLC4O. This is Term 1A. We are on Class 5. We are still working on Lesson 2, key question number 2, and then we're going to begin introducing Lesson 3 today as well. It is September 9th, 2025, and this is Jillian Percy. Here are all the ways to contact us. The studio is 1-800-465-7144. If you want to talk to me while I'm on the air. The office number is 1-800-667-3703, extension 2211. Keep in mind that after 4:30, nobody's up front answering the phone, so after that, it's better to try and reach me through email, okay? My email number is jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. Facebook is capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. If you send me a Facebook message, please let me know what class you're in and what you're asking me about. That way I've had a chance to prep. Like if you're asking me about courses or assignments, then I've got it pulled up when I start messaging you so I know what we're talking about, okay? There are 2 different YouTube channels that you can find the recorded classes on. One is my teacher channel, which is also G. Percy Wassa, and then there is the school channel, which is called Wassa Distance Education Center YouTube channel. And you make sure you spell center, CENTRE, otherwise it doesn't come up. How to hand in assignments. I always cover this because it's the very first thing almost anybody asks me. There are all sorts of different ways that you can hand in assignments. First of all, if there is a learning center in your community, you can give it to the DEC there, ask them to scan it and email it to me. When you do that, hang on to your originals. That email is studentwork@nnec.on.ca. When that happens, it goes into kind of our giant email bank there, and the secretary can log that you submitted the work, they print it off. It also means if anything were to happen, like you don't finish the course this year, next year it's still there. Or if another teacher teaches the course a different year, that's okay, they still have access to it. Whereas if you only send it to my email, nobody else has access to it, okay? You can fax us. The number here is 1-800-463-7852. That's for Ontario. 1-877-990-2023. That's if you're anywhere else in Canada. Give me a heads up and let me know that you're planning to fax something because we keep it on sleep and I'll turn it on. You can scan it yourself using a scanner app on the phone and send it to me, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Now, you can mail it to me, but I strongly discourage you from doing so. It can take a long time and things do sometimes get lost. If you do that, make sure you've got a photocopy of everything you send in case it does get lost. Some people do their assignments on the computer and share documents with me through Google Docs. You should have a Google Gmail through your student account. If you're having trouble with that, message me and I can try and get that set up for you. Other people like to hand in their assignments by taking a photograph of it and then sending it to me through Facebook or email. Generally, I find it's what people do if they are handwriting a document rather than it's already in the computer, right? If you're handwriting a document, please write in pen so it's dark enough for me to read. A lot of times the pencil just doesn't show up very well. Also, make sure your phone is parallel to your assignment so the writing doesn't get wonky and that there's no shadows or white spots where things have gotten kind of overexposed and I can't see it. Now, on your phone, you will have the option to send as an attachment. Please pick that option. Don't just email it. It comes up at this weird size and it's hard for me to print off, okay? But if you send it as an attachment, it's way easier, especially if you're sending multiple pages, all right? And if you are wanting to use a scanning app, they're really simple to use. They're not really any harder to use than a photograph, but they produce a much better quality of document for me to print off, okay? I use Adobe Scan. You can use whatever you like. It's free though. You can download it, install it on your phone, and then open it up. Then you can line up the dots in the corners, or there's little lines where you can line up the margin. Take the picture. Do that for every page in that document. Hit continue. At that point, it will let you preview everything you did. So if you did a blurry shot and you didn't realize it, okay, now you can fix it. You can also put the pages in a different order if you happen to shoot them out of order by mistake. When you're happy with it, hit Save PDF and give it a name. Usually I give it the course name plus an assignment name, and then save it to wherever you save your files, okay? Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, wherever you save your stuff. Then email it and attach that document, okay? That is the most reliable way to send me stuff that you've taken a picture of, because it just gives me a clear, crisp document that's easy for me to mark. Okay. So we're still in Unit 1. We're halfway through Lesson 2, which is all about sentences and parts of speech. Just a quick review. This is the success criteria for Lesson 2, which is if you can do these things, then you've achieved these goals. Oh, it looks like something. Hang on, I'm going to shrink this. I thought I'd gone through. Let me see. There we go. Okay. You will have achieved the lesson goals if you can define and identify the subject, verb, and object in a sentence and other parts of sentence and speech. Understand the difference between a phrase and a clause. Define and identify these parts of speech, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, and conjunctions. I should probably also add and be able to use them correctly in a sentence, okay? Quick note, we were talking about adjectives yesterday, and I just realized I'd forgotten to cover one topic, which is putting commas between adjectives. In theory, we use commas between adjectives if it all comes from the same category. Remember we talked about the categories: quality, size, shape, color, those. But when it's between different categories, they're not usually needed. A comma never goes between the adjective and the noun it modifies. So here we've got the angry, jealous man yelled at his wife. Angry and jealous are both basically adjectives of opinion, so they need a comma between them. Next we've got the beautiful mahogany clock was sold for a high price at the auction. Beautiful and mahogany are from different categories, so technically they really don't need a comma between that. If you're looking at your writing and you're not sure, I would lean towards putting the comma between them if you're just not sure what to do, okay? Most teachers, I think, won't mark that particularly strictly. I know I don't, but it does come up from time to time. I would also say, like, there are, like, what I forget, it was like 9 categories. It would be a very strange sentence if you had like more than 2 or 3 adjectives in a row. It starts to sound a little like silly, okay? So try to keep your adjective use to maybe 2, maybe 3, okay? Okay, so moving on to adverbs. An adverb is a word or a combination of words that modifies or describes a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. Now, I know this might be different than what you were taught in school. I know what I was originally taught in school was an adverb modifies a verb, and that's all I was taught. And that is one job of an adverb, but it does do other things. Adverbs will often tell you more about how, when, where, or why something happened. The adverb may come before or may come after the verb. If it's describing an adjective or an adverb, it generally comes right in front of it. So, some examples: he communicated politely with the cops. Politely is describing the verb communicated. And here I happen to put it afterwards, but I could easily put it in front. He politely communicated with the cops makes sense too. The losing team felt very discouraged. Discouraged is an adjective, very is describing it. Now I couldn't say the losing team felt discouraged very. In English that doesn't make sense. Very is a type of intensifier where they make whatever word they're describing more intense. So very, mostly, barely, scarcely. She sang too loudly. Too is another intensifier. It's describing the adverb loudly. And again, it comes in front. There are a few exceptions. There are some time adverbs that might reasonably come afterwards, but for the most part, that's how it goes. Okay, here are some more examples of adverbs. Adverbs of manner. Manner tells you like how something got done. Slowly, cheerfully, angrily, positively. Place, that tells you where something got done. Here, there, nearby, outside. Frequency, how often did it get done? Always, usually, never, rarely. When did it get done? Now, soon, yesterday, last week. Purpose. Why did it get done? Therefore, because, consequently, hence. This is not by any means an exhaustive list of adverbs. I can't even imagine how I could spend several days talking about all of them. This is just to give you an idea because I find what happens sometimes is people are very aware of adverbs that end in ly, but they don't really recognize that here is an adverb or that now is considered an adverb. So that's why I wanted to talk about that. Okay, we talked about the royal order of adjectives, and there is also something called the royal order of adverbs. It isn't quite as strict as adjectives, but basically you start with manner, then the place, then the frequency, then the time, then the purpose. So here we have Beth swims enthusiastically in the pool every evening before dusk to keep in shape. Dad walks impatiently into town every morning before work to get a newspaper. Joe naps in his room every afternoon after lunch. With adverbs, it's not as strange sounding if you have a whole lot of adverbs like it would be with adjectives. So while I wouldn't say you would want to put 5 adverbs in every single sentence, it's not as strange. It doesn't sound weird. It's considered acceptable. Okay. Okay, hang on a second. Sorry. Just gonna. Sorry there, coffee and fit. Susan walks quickly, manner, down the trail, place, every morning, frequency, at 6 o'clock, time, to train for the 5K race, purpose. You can see that makes perfect sense. However, sometimes you might want to put part of those adverbs at the beginning as an introductory clause or to put emphasis on them for some reason. It also kind of splits it up and makes the sentence sound a little more manageable, I think. Every morning at 6 o'clock, Susan walks quickly down the trail to train for the 5K race. So that's one example. All right. Support question number 6. Underline the adjectives in the sentence below. All right, so we've got the old black dog wagged its tail. So we look for the noun, and a common spot for adjectives is right in front of the noun. Old and black are definitely 2 adjectives. So I'm going to give them a little underline here. The house was cold and dusty. So house is a noun. There are no adjectives in front. Remember how we talked about how after a state of being verb, there might be adjectives? So cold and dusty. Cold is an adjective, and so is dusty. Okay. I looked at the new red motorcycle. So there's nothing describing I. Motorcycle is the noun, and right in front of it are new and red, and they are adjectives. The gray clouds in the sky made the day seem gloomy. Okay, so this is a tricky one. Gray is definitely an adjective. Now, some people might also say that in the sky is kind of a little adjective phrase describing clouds as well. I'm not worried about it if you miss that, but I did want to point that out to you. Okay? All right, number 2. Underline the adverbs in the sentence below. The burglar carefully turned the lock. Okay, so I'm going to look for the verb just to start. Turn is my verb. Carefully is right in front of it, and you can tell that ly ending, it's one of the adverbs, and I don't think there's any other adverbs there, and I'm going to underline that. John yelled angrily at the dog. Yelled is my verb, and angrily is another ly verb, and I'm going to underline that as well. So at the dog. I would generally say that that doesn't count as an adverb phrase because it's not answering, what were the things? Manner, place, frequency, time, or purpose. I would consider that a prepositional phrase. I wouldn't be bothered if you happened to have thought that it was an adverb phrase. It wouldn't bother me too much, but I personally don't think it counts as one. I write my exam tomorrow. Now that's a tricky one. There's no ly adverbs in there. Is there anything that's describing the verb? I write my exam tomorrow. Tomorrow is telling you when the writing is going to happen, so it's an adverb. Next door, the children played loudly. So remember how we talked about introductory phrases are commonly, not always, but commonly adverbs? I'm going to underline that. Next door is telling you where it happened. The children played loudly. Loudly is telling you how it happened. So there would be your adverbs. What are interjections? Do you remember we talked about that yesterday? Right? Interjections are one or sometimes two word phrases that are said with a lot of emotion, right? Could be fear, surprise, joy. They often have exclamation marks at the end, though they could end with periods. Things like, wow, yay, no, boo. But also things like hello, no, yes will sometimes count as interjections as well. Okay? Number 4, underline the conjunctions in the sentences below. So remember, conjunctions are joining items together. They could be joining two words together, two phrases together, or two short sentences together. I hate spinach and broccoli. So and is the conjunction there. I want to go swimming or go for a picnic. So there it's combining two phrases, go swimming or go for a picnic. I can't go unless I finish my homework. Unless is a special type of conjunction, a subordinating conjunction, but I want you to be aware they exist. I need to buy groceries, but I am out of money. And but it would be the other conjunction. Okay. Question number 5. What are the different types of relationships that prepositions can show? Now, this is the kind of question where I don't necessarily expect you to have it memorized in your head. It's totally fine to go back in the reading and go, hey, what kind of relationships did prepositions show? Or what some people might do is they would start with, hey, what are the ones I remember? And then they would go back and check. I'm not going to answer that one for you. I want you to go back and check. Okay, so that support question is done. We're moving on to the next part of the material. Words can have or be more than one part of speech. Partly because, remember, words can have more than one meaning, right? I could talk about a bat like an animal that is that flies. That would be a noun. Or I could talk about batting away somebody's mean hands. And in that case, I'm using it as a verb. I'm talking about me kind of knocking their stuff away. So because it can have more than one definition, it can be more than one part of speech. Yes, a run could be a noun also if you want to name an activity, like I'm going for a run. Race are sometimes labeled run, like the Kelly joined the 5K color fun run. So there it's being used as a proper noun, right? So something to be aware of when you're looking at parts of speech. Ouch. Because similar to that, words can also be more than one part of a sentence. Remember how we talked about parts of a sentence they're all about the relationships. They're not about the word's definition. They're more about the job that item is doing in the sentence. So a noun can do all sorts of different jobs in a sentence. So the one we've talked about the most is being the subject, but that's not the only job it could do. So if I said the dog chased the ball, at that point the dog is the subject because it's doing the activity. But it could also be an object. It could be receiving the activity. I could say the wolf chased the dog, and in that case the dog is acting as an object. Now its definition hasn't changed, right? It still means the same word. It could act as an indirect object. Mom gave the dog a bone. Okay, so it's receiving the bone. It could act as a noun complement. Remember, that's when it tells us more about the noun. Her pet was a dog. So here it's telling you what kind of pet she has. It could even act as a modifier. Here it's acting as a type of adjective. The dog house was made of cedar. Now, some people might use that as two separate ones. Some people might put it together. All right. I think it could also probably act as an object, although I don't have that one as an example. So, one thing I thought about doing is I often make little marks on your stuff as I'm marking things, and I wanted to make sure that you understood what those marks mean. Some things are really obvious, like a check mark means it's correct, and X usually means that it's wrong. A question mark generally means I'm a bit confused, okay? Circling usually means there's something I want you to look at. I'm going to show you a little chart there. If you have already handed in one assignment, take a look back at it. Did you notice any of these marks in the sheet? And did you instinctively understand them, or were you confused? So if you were confused, I'm including kind of a little cheat sheet here so that any of those little marks make sense. Okay. If I put a wavy line under a word, it usually means it's spelled wrong, and I just realized my Word document went ahead and corrected that. That was spelled wrong. That right now is spelled correct. Sometimes it might mean I can't tell what word you're writing. Usually, if that's the case, I will also have a question mark, okay? If I know what the word is, I will usually write it correctly over there if there's room. Some people write really big and there's just no room for me to write little notes like that. Capital letter. If I've crossed off a lowercase letter and put a capital letter over top, it means that letter needed to be a capital, not a lowercase. It could happen in the reverse, but it doesn't often happen. Remember that words that are names, a title, the beginning of a sentence or a quotation, or the word I, all need to be written in capital letters. The other thing I'll do a lot of times at the very beginning of a sentence, if you've forgotten to put a subject, I'll put this little part triangle thing, it's called a caret, and I'll write an S. And that means it needs a subject. This is probably one of the most common comments I will make. That's why we've spent so much time talking about subjects, because in English, a subject is it's like the chassis of the car. You have to have it. There's nothing that can drive that thing forward when you don't have that whole main frame to start the sentence off. And I know that's very different from Ojibwe, which from what I understand is more of a verb-based language. Okay. Sometimes you'll see that I will add a period, a question mark, some sort of punctuation just to show you that's where it should go. Sometimes these are flexible, like there's more than one spot I could put it. If you've done a really long run-on sentence, though, I will often add those to kind of show you here's where I think the sentences could have ended, okay? Those aren't necessarily right or wrong, but I'm trying to get you that idea across. Repetitious. That's usually, I'm writing that if you're writing, say, a journal on a topic, and rather than giving me new information in each sentence, you're basically saying the same thing over and over again, like, I liked the book. The book was good. I really liked it. Okay, I'm looking for more than that with a grade 12 course, right? So that's why I would say repetition. Confusing basically just means I can't quite tell what you're trying to communicate. Please make your idea more clear. Maybe it made perfect sense to you, but I'm missing some information. Maybe the word you use isn't quite the word that is needed there. Maybe I just need some more details. Basically, I just need some more information usually. If I've crossed a word off and put another word on top, it's usually because the word that you've used isn't quite the right one. That's really common with prepositions and with relative pronouns. Remember how we talked about they're kind of, I think, the trickier part of English because they are idiomatic. Idiomatic means we've developed ways of using them that there's not necessarily a literal reason for it. There's no logical way I can explain to you sometimes. Sometimes there is, but not always. It's just commonly we use it one way, and so I'm showing you what word should be there instead. No words have been crossed out, but I've written words above or next to your sentence. Commonly when I've done that, it's because I think that you need some more words to make your meaning clearer. The other spot is where there's a verb phrase, but parts of it are missing or incorrect, and so it's a little bit confusing. Okay? Sometimes it means that there's some sort of connecting preposition or pronoun phrases that are needed. Remember we talked about idiomatic? Occasionally English is idiomatic. There's no specific rule to explain, but there is a standard usage. And when we violate those rules, the sentence is going to sound slightly wrong. Now, you're not losing marks for that kind of stuff, okay? I just want to reassure you on that. But I want you to know the correct version. So, for example, in English, we would say, we are afraid of spiders rather than from spiders. But I would be hard-pressed to explain exactly why. Make sense? Okay, my voice is going on me a little bit here. Hang on a second. Okay, so the key question, this is number 2. This is the part that counts for marks. So I'm not going to give you answers like I did with the support question, because the support question is just us learning. But I am going to kind of walk through and make sure you understand how to do this, okay? So remember to use appropriate capitalization and punctuation into writing complete sentences anytime it's asking you to. Not all the questions do, but whenever it does, please make sure you do that, okay? Question number 1, underline the complete subject. The complete subject will include the articles, adjectives, and nouns that are doing the action or being described. So if I said, the tall golden sunflowers swayed with the breeze, the complete subject is the tall golden sunflowers. Okay? So there's like 4 or 5 of those, and you would answer those. Number 2, look at this list of nouns. Trees, house, man, couch, pencil. Write a different sentence for each one of those nouns. Use at least 2 different adjectives to describe each noun. No adjective can be repeated. I don't want you to use big in every sentence, for example. Underline your adjectives. Keep in mind, if you don't underline your adjectives, you're going to lose many, if not all, of your marks because I can't tell if you know where your adjectives are. Okay? So here's an example with the word table. The long wooden table is perfect for the kitchen. So long is an adjective and wooden is an adjective, and I've underlined them. Number 3, look at this list of verbs. Cried, hunted, was running, gestured, and drove. So was running is a phrase. You have to use those both together. Write a different sentence for each one of those verbs and use one adverb to describe each verb. No adverb can be repeated. Underline your adverbs in each sentence. So I'm going to use the example of the verb walked. She walked quickly to the birthday party. Now, if you had written that sentence but forgotten to underline quickly, I'm only going to give you 1 mark. So you'll lose half your marks if you forget to do the underlining, okay? That's what I'm looking for, is that you know how to find them, okay? Number 4, look at this list of conjunctions. And, or, but, because, after. Create a different sentence for each conjunction. Remember that a conjunction can be used to join words, phrases, or even sentences together. Underline the conjunction in each sentence. For example, I went home, comma, after I finished the work. And again, if you forget to underline the conjunctions, you're going to lose your marks. Number 5, write a brief introduction to yourself so I know a little bit about you. Let me know about your community, your family, your previous experiences with schooling, your current work situation, and anything else that you think is important for me to know. This should be at least 6 to 10 sentences long. Okay? One of the reasons why I ask for this is because I have students as young as like 15 and 16. I have students in their 60s. Some people have never worked. Some people have been working for the last 30 years. Some people do lots of writing in their work. Some people are not doing any kind of writing or reading in their work. So it does help me when I'm working with you to have just some sort of idea about you and your history, because otherwise all I know is a name, right? And it's very hard sometimes to teach and help people if I don't know much about them. So you have to tell me anything like super personal, but just kind of give me a little bit of an idea so I can picture you in my head, basically. Okay? So here's a sample introduction from me. I am originally from Windsor, which is right across from Detroit. Windsor is an auto town with lots of blue collar jobs. I have one older brother and one younger brother. They are both very athletic, while I am more of a bookworm. I was very shy as a kid, so it seems very strange that I became a teacher. I loved school at first, but then it became horrible. High school was a lot better and university was a lot of fun. Afterwards, I worked at a few bookstores, but the pay was not that great. A lot of the other staff at the store were working their way through teachers' college, so I thought I might try it too. It was a turning point in my life. Now, I wanted to talk about sentences versus lines. When it says 6 to 10 lines, what some people will do is go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've used 10 lines, therefore that means it's 10 sentences. But that is not correct. When I'm looking at sentences, I am looking to see where you have put a period. So if you did this entire paragraph and only put one period, that would only count as one sentence. So this sounds kind of nitpicky, and it probably is, but I'm going to be honest, I really do this. Hang on, let me see if I can get a pen there. I will literally go through and count. There's one period. There's a second period. Third period. Fourth period. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that's just by accident, by the way. So, but you would want to have at least 6. If you have less than 6 sentences, you're really probably not telling me very much about yourself, okay? So make sure you use periods at the end because that is what I am counting. Now, sometimes when people are used to using Facebook and Messenger a lot, for some reason in Facebook and Messenger, there's kind of a technique where people tend to use commas instead of periods at the end of a sentence. And I'm not sure why, but in academic writing, that is not considered acceptable. So remember, if you have a lot of commas in your writing, take a look and make sure, are some of those commas, should they really be periods? Are they really the end of a sentence instead? So if so, go ahead and change them. Once you've got that done, you can hand it in. Now, oh no, this is key to it. We're okay. This is good. All right, I'm going to move on to lesson 3 now. This one is about reflecting and setting goals. Some people might find this a little bit frustrating, but one of the goals in this course is for students to begin learning how to figure out what their own strengths and weaknesses are, decide on a reasonable goal, decide on how they're going to measure it, decide whether they've reached their goal. Because that's kind of one of those things that we begin to do as adults. And some of you may already be amazing at that, but some of you may have never been asked to do that. So I kind of walk you through this in a very slow fashion because I just don't know how much experience you have setting goals in school. This is kind of those things that these days is pretty common, but I know when I went to school, I don't think anyone ever asked me to set a goal of my own in school. So it's kind of a newer thing. Here are the success criteria for Unit 3. Oh, hang on a second. Why is it doing that? All right. Sorry, I'm just going to, if you're out in Radio Land, the reason there's a pause is because I'm just very quickly making the writing a tiny bit smaller because it decided to fall off the page, which it wasn't doing when I was doing it earlier, but, you know, different computers. Okay. So, by the end of the lesson, you will have achieved lesson goals if you can identify your own weaknesses and strengths in reading, writing, and self-reflection, set literacy goals in reading, writing, and self-reflection, create a schedule and a study plan for how to complete this course, recognize and demonstrate the behaviors of a successful and active participant in this course. So for some students, this course is the last or even the only one they need to finish to receive their high school degree. For other students, it's a transition from taking the junior PLAR courses, the grade 9 and 10 courses, before they move on to the grade 11 and grade 12 courses. So if you just finished PLAR and then you finished maybe senior PLAR, this is often the very first course you get assigned. If you haven't been in school for a while, that may mean this is your first time doing these kinds of activities in a long time, which is why we kind of start with the basics. But it's a good idea to think about, what are your goals for this course? A lot of people will just say, well, I want to finish. Okay, but how do you know whether you've done it well, right? Besides grades, right? If I never gave anybody grades, how would you know whether you'd done well or whether you'd made progress or not? Okay, so for this part, I'm basically sharing with you some of my goals, okay? This is not everything. There's like easily I have a whole book that of what I'm supposed to be teaching you guys, but this is my summary in my head of what I'm trying to get across to you, okay? First of all, in reading, I want you to be able to identify and understand the unique characteristics of fictional and non-fictional narratives, informational text, and graphic texts in order to read them more effectively. I want you to be able to understand and use a wide variety of reading strategies in order to understand these texts. And I want you to be able to make connections, to make inferences and predictions, to activate background knowledge on a topic, to ask questions, to self-monitor for comprehension, to locate information, to summarize narratives, opinions, and informational texts, to be able to offer an opinion on something you've read, and to support your answers with proof or evidence from the texts or from your own experience. Oh, sorry. All right, writing. I want you to be able to understand English grammar well enough to be able to consistently express your ideas, your opinions, information in correct sentence structure, and understanding the wide variety of sentence types and patterns. I want you to understand the basic paragraph format and how it may be changed depending on whether it's a narrative, informational, or opinion paragraph. And I want you to identify and understand the unique characteristics of fictional and non-fictional narratives, informational text, and graphic text in order to write short and longer text more effectively. And then finally, self-reflection and assessment. I want you to be able to reflect on your reading and writing progress and your skills in a learning journal. I want you to keep a portfolio of your own work and be able to use the portfolio to select reading and writing assignments that reflect your best improvement or overall product. I want you to be able to make connections between the work that we do here in class and the literacy skills that are needed in everyday life, work, and school. And I want you to be able to set personal literacy goals in reading and writing and be able to assess whether you are achieving those goals. Okay, that's my main goals, basically. So, support question number 8. Below is a checklist of literacy skills. I'm going to actually do a little goal setting first, but anyways, read over this list and decide on which skills you think you are already doing quite well at and which ones need more improvement. Please note that this checklist has been modified from previous versions of the course if you took it before. Before you start, think about what literacy skills you need in the different areas of your life. Your answers could include English or any other languages that you commonly speak at home, work, or school. So think about, first of all, what reading, writing, listening, or speaking skills do you need at work to be successful? Some people may need a lot, like if you're doing office work. Some people may not need a whole lot, right? What reading, writing, listening, or speaking skills do you need at home to be successful? Even that's going to be a little bit different, right? If you're living on your own, it might be a little bit different than if you've got a family with 5 kids, where you may need a lot of reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills, right? What reading, writing, listening, or speaking skills do you need at school to be successful? Okay, so on the questionnaire, there's some numbers. Here, I'll just kind of show it to you real quick. And people always ask me, what do the numbers mean? Number 1 means weak skills. Number 2 means you've got some skills, but you need improvement. Number 3 means you've got a strong level of skills, and usually you can reach your goals in that area. Number 4 is you have an excellent level of skills. You can consistently use those skills in a professional and extremely thorough and competent manner. Okay? So here is an example. The first section is all about writing. Write a simple sentence correctly and grammatically. Yes, I feel like I can do that really well. Writing more advanced sentence types and patterns correctly and grammatically. Maybe I feel like I mostly can do that well, but maybe I need some help. Writing a simple paragraph. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm okay, but I need some more work. Maybe I'm pretty happy with it. Maybe I'm super happy and I don't need any work in that at all. So for each one of those, you decide. Now, there's no wrong or right answers, okay? I don't care if you put all 1s, I don't care if you put all 4s, but you need this in order to answer some of the questions later and to set goals. So don't just waste time. Really take a few minutes. It won't take, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes to do the entire little checklist. And just kind of decide what things do you need more help with, okay? Writing a simple paragraph. Writing several paragraphs connected to a simple topic, like a research paper or something. Spelling skills, grammar or sentence writing skills, using punctuation correctly, understanding capitalization rules, understanding how to use the writing process, writing email messages, writing personal letters and messages, writing business letters and memos, writing to express your opinion or persuade others using reasons or examples, writing 1 to 2 page reports to summarize information that you've read. And then reading. Understand short stories and fictional novels easily. Can identify literary elements such as characters, settings, plot, and theme. I just noticed for some reason I'm missing the numbers there. You would just write the numbers in there. That's fine. Sorry. Can identify news stories and the inverted triangle writing format. Understand and locate information in textbooks. Understand and locate information in graphic material such as charts, maps, graphs, schedules, and posters. Can use a variety of reading strategies to help myself understand what you can read. Can make connections from a text to my life or to another book. Can make inferences about what is happening in a text, even if it's not directly stated. Understand most words that I read in day-to-day life. Able to use tools like a glossary, a dictionary, or a thesaurus to help me understand new and familiar words. Understand nonfiction text features like the table of contents, the index, headings and subheadings, different fonts and lists, and can usually identify the main idea and important details in informational text. Okay. Okay. Take a moment to think. Oh, there should be a self-reflection one here. Hang on. Did it end up down there? All right. Looks like somehow it got forgotten. Go through the self-reflection one as well. Okay, don't skip that just because I neglected it. Take a moment to think about your checklist answers. In the key question for this chapter at the end, I'm going to be asking you to set some literacy goals. Best bet is while you've got the checklist fresh in your mind, take a moment and set some goals. What's your goal for reading? What's a goal for writing? What is an area of improvement for self-reflection? Okay. How will you measure your progress? So a lot of students get very focused on the grades they receive for each assignment, which I understand, but sometimes it's because they feel like, well, that's the only way to measure their progress. But that can lead to students feeling really frustrated if their marks don't change dramatically, even when they feel that they've made progress. So a lot of different elements go into an assignment's overall grade. So you may not have made progress in some areas, but maybe not in others. So your grades might not always change as quickly as you hoped. So besides grades, what are some other ways that you could measure your progress in a certain skill? Okay. Here is a list of possible ways, and you may think of more. These are just the ones that crossed my mind. Maybe the skill becomes easier for you, or maybe the skill becomes faster for you. Like at the beginning, it took you, 40 minutes to write a journal. Now you can whip one off in 20 minutes. You can use the skill effectively in more areas or formats. Like before, you were really comfortable expressing your opinion, but you weren't very comfortable writing a newsletter or a news report. You feel more confident and less frustrated. Teacher is commenting on the progress in a positive way. The paper comes back with less negative comments. On the marking rubric, your marks have gone up for a particular category, even if not for the overall assignment. You feel like you understand what you're reading better. You feel like you are more able to get your ideas across in writing. You can talk or write about reading or writing more effectively. You recognize different reading or writing formats and their individual characteristics more easily. You can identify different reading or writing skills and can talk or write about them. And you've become more aware of your own strengths and your own weaknesses in reading, writing, and self-reflection. Okay, so now this is kind of switching to support question number 9. Hopefully we've got enough time to go through it. If we don't, we'll just finish it up tomorrow. Here's where we're beginning to make a study plan, okay? One of the first ways to make progress with your studies is to begin to set up a plan for where, when, and how you plan to get your work done. Think about and record. When do the live classes run, and could I join into them? In this particular year, classes are only running in term 1A. It won't run live the rest of the year. If you can't join the live class, where can you view your classes online? What's the school site and what's the teacher's site? Hint, I talk about it at the beginning of this lesson. What days and times do I work at? What days are free? What volunteer commitments do I need to keep or let go of while I focus on my studies? So sometimes I know people are involved with, maybe you are, you volunteer at the school, or maybe you're part of a sports team. And you need to be kind of aware of, hey, these are busy seasons. Or sometimes you may need to be like, hey, I really need to finish high school and I need to step away from that. I'm not the one to make that decision. That's entirely your decision. But just kind of keep in mind, it's not just work. It's also obviously whatever kind of volunteering you do. What are your child care or parental care duties? And again, this is different for everybody. You may have full custody. You may have part custody. Maybe you work nights and your partner works days. Maybe you cover the mornings, maybe you cover the evenings. I don't know. But think about that, because it can be really hard to do work if you have children who are, especially young children, who are needing a lot of attention. So sometimes people will be like, oh, I'll just do it in the evenings. But in the evenings, they're actually really taking care of their children, and it's tricky. Now, some people can do it after the kids go to bed, but it kind of depends. So think about that and how it might affect your ability to do your work. Again, there's no right or wrong answers. I'm just trying to get you to think about stuff. Is there a learning center in my community? What days and times is it open? Not everybody has one, right? Some of the communities do, some don't. How can I reach the DEC who runs the center? Some of the DECs have their own Facebook, like for the school. Some of them have a phone number. You kind of have to look into that and see. Is there a tutor there that can give me extra help if needed? So the DEC kind of runs the center. They're not really a teacher. Some of the learning centers have tutors, okay? Not all of them. It kind of depends if the community has found somebody. But it's a really useful resource if your community is one that has that. Should I be making time in my day to head over there to the learning center and do my work there where I might have help or people to keep me company? Now, this kind of depends. Some people find it really, really helpful to go to the learning center and do some work. Like, okay, I'm going to go there at 1 o'clock and I'm going to work till 2:30 and then I'll go home. And because they've committed and they've left the house, it kind of keeps them on track. Other people, they would see a whole bunch of friends there and they'd get to talking and it wouldn't be as helpful. You're the only one that knows whether that would be helpful to you or not. Do you know how to reach your teacher if you need to? That's me. Hint, it is on the cover page of almost every single one of your units, and I talked about it at the beginning of this course, okay? Looking at all the information above, think about what days of the week and what times might be a good time to tackle your schoolwork. I have left spaces for more than one time in the day in case you want to do a split schedule. So for example, maybe at 12 o'clock, you want to work at the Learning Center for an hour, and then after supper at 7 o'clock, you're going to do another hour or two. Maybe some days you're not going to work at all. Like maybe Sunday, you just don't like to do schoolwork. Or maybe realistically, you're not going to get much work done Monday to Friday because you work full time, but Saturday and Sunday, you'll get a lot done. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. I just kind of want you to think about it ahead of time. Sometimes what happens is people put off making a plan, and then suddenly in like May, they contact me and they're kind of frantic because they need to get everything done. So I'm just trying to get people sort of thinking about it ahead of time. Okay, now that you know when you have time available, how many hours a week do you actually need to put into this course? Well, that's going to depend a lot on your weekly schedule and your overall due date. Some students are trying to get through the course in a month, others are planning on 4 months, some are merely trying to get it done before the end of the year, right? If you have a specific goal, especially if it's a short goal, like I need this done in 3 weeks, please clue me in so I know so I can really stay on top of your marking, okay? Sometimes people I know have very specific things happening where you have to get things done for a certain time, so let me know about that. The Ministry of Education expects each high school course to take 110 hours to complete. That means that each unit will probably take you about 27 to 30 hours to finish. However, some students may get through a unit quicker due to being really quick readers and writers. Others may take longer to complete their assignments. You are the only one who knows how quickly you generally work. The other thing is sometimes one unit may take you way less time because it was stuff that you really understood. Another unit may take you more time than expected because it was stuff you haven't written before. Okay? I am going over time, so I'm going to have to stop here. Today is Tuesday, and I will be back tomorrow. Send me a message if there's anything that you need help with, and I hope your courses are going well.